name is Charles Hart. How are you?
Good morning. My name is Travis Modick, and I'm the chair of our commission. I want to thank you for your application and interest in serving in our 7th Circuit. You applied for both circuit and county court. If you could start off by telling us about your background, experience, and qualifications for judicial office.
My name is Charles Hart. I graduated from the University of Florida, cum laude. I've practiced in the 7th Judicial Circuit. I've done injunction hearings. I've done small claims cases. I've done a little bit of civil litigation. I've practiced a lot of criminal law. I've done guardianship, and I do juvenile work here. I fulfilled my requirements to be a Florida Supreme Court certified family law mediator. I'm waiting for the certification to come through. I started off my career as a prosecutor. I worked as a public defender. I worked for the Office of Criminal and Civil Regional Conflict Counsel, as well as also I've done private defense criminal work.
Why do you want to serve as a judge?
Because I found in my life that it is most fulfilling when I serve others.
Do you have a preference as to circuit court or county court?
I like county court a little better because obviously there's a little bit more of a bent towards being able to help people a little more directly because of my criminal background. Unfortunately, sometimes people, when they're charged with felonies, it's as bad as it gets.
Okay.
Although I do have a background in obviously guardianship, which is so.
What do you believe makes somebody a good judge?
One, listening to the litigants and the attorneys before you. 2, following the law. 3, getting your words out on time. And also 2, I think another very important factor is being respectful during this time.
Do you have a judicial philosophy, and if so, what is it?
The law is precise, follow the law.
As a candidate for judicial office, you have to know the Florida Code of Judicial Conduct. Did you read those canons?
Yes, I have.
How many times have you read those?
In total, completely through one time in one sitting. I've never read them completely through one time, one sitting. However, though, I'm familiar with the rules from a variety of different reasons. So I would say that in total, I've read through them once, but I don't have them memorized by any means.
As a candidate for judicial office, do you know how many of those canons apply to you?
My understanding is all of them apply to me. As a candidate, they will all apply. I'm sorry, I maybe don't understand the question. I don't know the rules off the top of my head, and I'm a big believer in if I don't know the rules off the top of my head, because the law is precise, you need to be careful with what you say. So I would naturally say that they would all apply, and I would be cautious rather than just willy-nilly.
As a circuit judge, you may handle felony criminal cases, so let's pretend that this is a felony sentencing hearing. As a judge, what factors or process would you consider before imposing a sentence?
Well, first off, is there a minimum involved? Is there a minimum mandatory? If there's a minimum mandatory, well, the minimum mandatory is required first. Also, is the person PRR? So that's another issue. This is a situation where the prison really exceeds the offender. So, is there any discretion on my part? Then we could get into the mitigating factors that would exist if there are any. But obviously, also is a negotiated plea with the state. I mean, is there a reason to simply say, well, this is unacceptable to the court? However, kind of without more, hopefully that answered your question without more background on it.
As a judge, you may be required to impose the death penalty. Would you be able to do that?
Yes, I could follow up.
I have a question. I always like to ask the questions that are most concerning in my mind, so that when I go back in the room, you've had an opportunity to answer them.
Yes, sir.
And I worry if you are appointed that somebody's going to look at you and being from Orlando, and they're going to go after your seat in an election. So can you talk to me about that? And because the worst thing in my mind is having that transition in the bench is not good for people in the 7th Circuit. If there's a turnover through elections where somebody's on the bench for 2 years and then they're out. I want to avoid it. So talk to me about the election issue and how you would address it.
Well, the reason why this is the first time you're seeing me here with this is there has been an excellent opportunity for me to relocate to Volusia. The issue is one, I'm moving. Two, is this is where my family lives. This is where my mother lives. Three, the one characteristic about me is my tenaciousness. I was supposed to I wanted to go to the University of Florida. I couldn't get in. What I ended up doing was I went to FIU, I worked hard, and what I ended up doing was starting my class, and I transferred to UF and I graduated from college. So I would, if I were selected by this board, by this committee, I would work hard, I would show integrity, I would show competency, and I would hope that everyone would understand that it should be an issue of my locality and where I was living and where I'm planning to live in the future. It would be an issue of my interpretation of law because the law in the state of Florida is regardless of where you live.
Do you have plans to move to Volusia County?
Yes, I've immediately. I've chosen not to renew my lease in Orange County, as well as also all my commitments to keep me in Orange County have been completed, and now I'm in the process of moving here.
Is there a Seventh Circuit judge that you are familiar with that you would seek out as a mentor?
The judge that I like most is no longer on the bench, Judge Clayton. So I would say that probably it would be Angela Dempsey would be the judge that I know her husband and her family very well, or very well. So I would say there, but the judge I personally always liked a great deal. 17's my favorite judge actually I've ever appeared before this judge.
How would you affect you if you had indicated that you were a judge, a live person answered the phone, that you were not manually driven, didn't know exactly what was meant by that, and I don't know how you would accomplish the first one. How would you accomplish the first one, and what did you mean by not particularly manually driven?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear all the question, so I think this was your question. You were asking, I wouldn't be manual driven. The concern I always have is there's an impersonality that seems to be persuasive in law, and immediately when you have a question of the court, it's go look at my manual. And they don't tell you the page, they don't give you any information, and a lot of times when you're calling the judge, you have a serious problem. You're not calling the judge because you're wanting to, have an idle conversation. There's a real problem. And I hate it when there's a real problem that you get an impersonal answer of go look at the manual. And so for me personally as a practitioner of law, I like it that there is some type of communication where your problem is solved. I think that goes to respecting people's time. I think that also goes to following the law, and I also think that goes to listening to the people that are here before you. It's showing them respect.
You were a House candidate, I believe, in 2022.
Yes, sir.
What was the geographic area that was covered by that?
The geographic area that was Seminole County and Orange County.
The Seventh Circuit is big.
Yes, sir.
And so what did you learn in that candidacy that you think would be helpful to you, in particular, given the constraints that are there as a judicial candidate? There's something you can say, something you can't say. And so when you were running for office, you were able to say what you thought and how you would deal with things. So my question to you is, that did not work out, and it's a different territory. But if you go for a circuit spot, you got 4 counties. You get 4 county spot, you got 1. So in any event, what did you learn? How does it translate? Why are you going to win?
Well, number one, my love of law supersedes my love of politics. The next issue is that the law in the state of Florida is uniform, and people that are coming before you have real problems, and you need to be respectful of them, you need to be respectful of their time, you need to be respectful of the attorneys that are arguing on their behalf, and you need to get out of orders on time. And also, too, is as far as you need to always act with integrity, and you need to always show a level of impartiality with everything you do, because people depend on judges to make decisions that affect their lives. They're not coming to court because they're bored.
Let me ask you some questions about your financial disclosures.
Yes, sir.
You listed Charles Hart, PA, as valued at $500,000. I'm wondering how you came up with that valuation.
Based on accounts receivable that are coming in, based on also just the sheer accounts receivable, money on hand in my bank accounts, as well as also expected business in the upcoming year.
going. I saw you had a year where you reported 2021, you reported a gross loss of 21,000, but then somehow a net income of 16,000. I'm wondering how that occurred.
With my involvement in politics, I spent a lot of time working in politics and not practicing law as much because that was part of the focus there. So I didn't make as much money as I could have made when I was being chairman of the Orange County Republican Party. So there were losses carried forward from that by my involvement.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, in closing, is there anything you want to highlight before we deliberate?
I appreciate your time. Thank you for hearing me out.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.